Hello, Shelley from Spin Cushions here. Today I'm going to show you how to make this square from my Siren's Atlas collection called Denmark. I really like it, how it sort of changes shapes. It's a bit lacy. So, I'll be making mine in a single colour. You're welcome to make yours as many colours as you like. I'll let you know if you need to do anything different at the end of every round if you are changing colours. So we begin with a magic circle. I think a magic circle actually works best with this one because it's got, oops, beg your pardon, because we're using just double crochets UK, single crochets US in the centre. So we're going to chain one. Now I rarely do this, but when we're starting in the very beginning and doing double crochets UK, single crochets US, then I do like to do that chain one. It just makes it easier to work into that first stitch. So 12 doubles UK, singles US. So I will do 12. You don't need to watch me do 12, and show you how to join up and what's next. Okay, 12 stitches are done. Just need to pull my magic circle tight. Make sure it doesn't get caught up. And then join with a slip stitch to the first stitch. So if you're not quite sure, just count backwards. I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That right there. That chain one that we did has completely disappeared. It just pops this up a little bit so that you can put your hook in it a bit easier. Alright, so join with a slip stitch. And we are done. Alright, round 2. Double crochet UK, single crochet US, one in the same place we joined up with our slip stitch, and that same hole again. Then we're going to do a stitch in the next 2, doubles UK, singles US, 1, 2. In the next stitch, we're going to do a stitch, chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And a stitch in that same stitch. So that's going to become our corner. So 2 stitches along the side, then a stitch, chain 4, a stitch in the next stitch. 2, 3, 4. Two. Then our corner stitch, chain 2, 3, 4, and a stitch. Sorry, probably just as quick for me to pause it as it is to keep going. Stitch in the next 2. Okay, so now we're back to the beginning. That there is actually our slip stitch join. This is our first stitch. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain 1. And we're going to join to that first stitch with a treble UK double US. I'll explain why in a moment. If you're changing colours though, chain 4 and join with a slip stitch. Okay, so now we have, you can see our corners quite clearly. They're 4 chain spaces. By joining with that stitch, treble UK double US, it's put us as if we're in the middle of that stitch. So that chain 1 on the top of the stitch counts as chain 2, and this post of the stitch counts as the other chain 2 of the pattern. So I will just move on. Sorry, I didn't turn the page. Alright, now with first stitches we're going to do double crochets UK, single crochets US over the joining stitch. All that means is in this hole we're just pretending that that post is 2 chain space, or part of the 4 chain space. So 2 stitches. Then we're going to skip the next stitch. In the next stitch, sorry, we're skipping, so we've got 4 stitches along each side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're skipping this stitch here that we joined into. You can see that's the join, that's the bottom of the stitch we joined with. So we're skipping that stitch. In the next stitch, which is the second one, we're doing a double crochet UK, single crochet US, chaining 2, and doing a stitch in the next stitch. Then we're skipping that last stitch, and in this 4 chain space we're going to do 2 stitches, chain 2, 2 stitches. So skip 1, stitch in the next stitch, chain 2, stitch in the next stitch, skip 1, and our corner, 2 stitches, chain 2, 2 stitches. So I'll do that all the way around and show you what's next. Alright, I've done my repeats. Now I just need to do 2 stitches in the same place as our first one, so this big hole here. Now, chain 2, join with a slip stitch if you are changing colours. If you're not, chain 1. And if you're not really sure of my methods yet, pop a little scrap of yarn in, because it'll just help you, especially if it's only being short stitches, find the right places to work next. And we're going to join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US to that first stitch. Alright, now the next round we're going to do a stitch over the joining stitch, which is where this stitch marker comes in handy. If you just poke your hook in there, that's the right place. Then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to skip all the stitches, and in that 2 chain space we are going to do 3 trebles UK, doubles US. Whoops. One, 2, 3. Then we're going to, where are we? Chain 3 again. Skip the 3 stitches along the side, and in the 2 chain space we're going to do 1 stitch, double crochet UK, single crochet US, chain 2, and 1 stitch. So there we have it. That's our side, that's our corner. I'll do that all the way around and show you how to finish off. Alright, repeats are done. I just need to do a stitch in the same place. Oops, just undid a chain. As our first stitch, which is where that piece of yarn comes in handy again. If you pop your hook in there, you'll be all good. Now, if you're changing colours, chain 2, join with a slip stitch. If you're not changing colours, chain 1, move your yarn up, and join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US. Alright, next round. Starts the same way, stitch over the joining stitch where the stitch marker is. We are going to skip the next stitch, and in this 3 chain space we're going to do 3 double crochets UK, single crochets US. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to skip the next stitch, and in this middle stitch here we're going to do 5 trebles UK, doubles US. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Skip the next stitch, 3 doubles UK, singles US in the 3 chain space. Skip the next stitch, in the 2 chain space we do our corner, 1 stitch, chain 2, 1 stitch. So that's our corner, that's our side. I will go around and do that and show you what's next. Alright, repeats are done. Just need to skip a stitch and do a stitch in the same place as our first one, which is where the stitch marker is. Chain 2, join with a slip stitch if you're changing colours. If you're not, chain 1. Move this up if you're using it. You don't have to. I don't. It's just good if you're not quite sure how to read the stitches just yet. Okay, so that's that. Next round. So this is round 6. Chain 3 starting chain or a false stitch. Then a treble UK WS over the joining stitch, which is where that stitch marker is. Then we're going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to skip 6 stitches. So we're going to be working, sorry, I'm just just trying to make it clear for you. Skip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this stitch here, which should be the middle one of those 5, we're going to do a double crochet UK, single crochet US, chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, skip 6 stitches, which is all of the stitches along the side, and then in the corner we're going to do 3 trebles UK, doubles US in that 2 chain space. 2, 3. So nice easy round. I will work my way around and show you how to finish it off. Alright, repeat's done. I just need to do a stitch, treble UK WS in the same place as our first ones, which is where that stitch marker is. We can take that out now, we don't need that. I'm going to join with a slip stitch to the top of your 3rd chain of your starting chain, or false stitch if that's what you did. Okay, next round is nice and easy. We're going to do a double crochet UK, single crochet US in that same stitch we joined into with a slip stitch. We'll do the same stitch in the next stitch. We're going to do 6 of them in the 5 chain space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1 in the next stitch, 6 in the 5 chain space, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, stitch in the next stitch, and that is our side finished. And in the next stitch we're going to do our corner, which is, no, actually it's not our corner, we're just going to do a stitch in the next 3. 1, 2, 3. We're sort of going circular now, kind of. So a stitch in every stitch, 6 stitches in every 5 chain space all the way around, and I'll show you what's next. Alright, I've worked my way all the way around. I just need to do a stitch in the next stitch and then join with a slip stitch to my first stitch. Now you might want to make sure you've got 64 stitches here, because we're going to square off in the next round. If you don't have 64 stitches, it's not going to work. Alright, so we're going to start with chain 3 starting chain. Then twice we're going to do this little repeat. Chain 1, oops, skip the next stitch and do a half treble UK, half WS in the next stitch. So that's 1, 2. Then 3 times we're going to do this mini repeat. Chain 1, skip 1 and do a double crochet UK, single crochet US in the next stitch. That's 1, 2, skip 1, 3, then twice we do our other repeat again. Chain 1, skip 1, half treble UK, half WS, next stitch. That's 1, 2. Then we're going to chain 1, skip 1, and in the next stitch, which should be the middle one, the stitch above the middle stitch of your group of 3, we're going to do a treble UK WS, chain 3, and the same. Okay, so I'll do that all the way around and show you what's next. Okay, repeats are done. I just need to chain 1, skip 1 and do a stitch in the same place as our first stitch, which is down here. If you're changing colours, chain 3, join with a slip stitch to your first stitch. If you're not changing colours, chain 1 and join with a half treble UK, half WS to your first stitch. It's the same principle as joining with a double crochet we did before. It's just a slightly bigger one. So this takes the place of 1.5 chain, and that's another 1.5 chain there, that stitch. Okay, next round. Chain 3 starting chain. Chain 1, then we're going to do a treble UK WS over that joining stitch, so in here. Then 8 times we're going to do this little repeat. Chain 1, skip 1 stitch, and a treble UK WS in the 1 chain space. So basically just doing a stitch in every 1 chain space with a chain 1, skip 1 in between each one. So I will do that and then show you the corner, because the corner is a little bit different. Okay, so in the corner we're going to be doing 1 stitch. These are all treble UK WS, 1 stitch, chain 1, another stitch, chain 1, another stitch. So that's our corner. 3 stitches with a 1 chain space in between each of them. So there you go, our side and our corner. I'll do that and show you what's next. Alright, repeats are done. Just need to do a stitch in the same place as our first ones. Chain 1 and join with a slip stitch to our first stitch. Alright, one more round to go. Chain 3 starting chain, or a false stitch. And it's very, very simple. We're going to do a stitch in every 1 chain space, trebles UK, doubles US, and a stitch in every stitch. And our corners are 1 stitch, chain 2, 1 stitch. So I will work that all the way around, and I will show you what it looks like at the end. Sorry, I should show you the corner because it's a little bit different. So stitching in each stitch and each space all the way along, and then in that middle stitch of our corner, that's where we're working our corner of 1 stitch, chain 2, 1 stitch, then back to a stitch in every space and stitch. Okay, I'll keep going and show you the end. Okay, repeats are done. I just need to do a stitch in the same place as our first one, which is in that middle stitch there, and chain 2 and join with a slip stitch to our first stitch. And that is that done. Right, so it's relatively flat. Sure, it could straighten up a little bit with blocking, but it's pretty cool. So this is Bendigo Wool & Mills cotton. This is Cascade Ultra Pima cotton, much the same size. If you want to make it bigger, add a round of double crochet UK, single crochet US, or smaller, change that last round to half stitches, or even double crochets UK, single crochets US, and it all should be good. So there you go. Denmark from my Siren's Atlas collection. Make sure you check out spincushions.com for more crochet fun. Thanks. Bye.